Alright, the claim I'm going to be responding to is that an increase of age limit past the age of 21 years old to obtain credit cards will minimize college student debt. And then my opponent's supporting claims were that one, young college students are not knowledgeable of credit card policies. Two, young college students accumulate debt quickly. And three, by obtaining credit cards early in college, young college students are likely to be in more credit card debt prior to graduation. And I will respond to these supporting claims by challenging the evidence, challenging the reasoning, and providing counterclaims. Now, first, I will challenge evidence, and that's because my opponent really mentioned something called the CARD Act, which is known as the Credit Card Act Accountability, Responsibility, and Disclosure Act, which, according to Havala Golston of creditcard.com, she states that this act requires that not only minors prove income, but that their credit limit also be imposed based on their ability to repay. Additionally, a credit card applicant under the age of 21 may be required to pass a course in financial management before being granted an account. This basically states that anyone under the age of 21 has to get co-signed if they're not able to pay. And this kind of like debunks her theory, because she's stating that young college students, our supporting claims are aimed at young college students. And personally, I think anyone 18 to 21 is a young college student. So the CARD Act would kind of like debunk her whole evidence. Not only that, but most of her evidence is cited from before, when the Credit Card Act was made. The CARD Act was put in force in 2010. And like one example of her evidence was, it was made in 2005 by Nellie May, which states that the most dramatic, however, is the 70% jump occurring between freshman and sophomore year, the percentage of students with at least one card from 54 to 92% of the total population, which states that basically freshmen, the amount of people that have credit cards from freshman to sophomore year increases. Now, this wouldn't happen with the CARD Act in place. It wouldn't happen because it prevents it. And kind of like a solution's already been placed to it, because well, the CARD Act basically, like, there's no reason to up the age limit if the CARD Act's already in place. I mean, according to Blake Ellis of CNN.com, she says that consumers whacked down credit card debt by 11% last year, and average debt dropped. And this is most likely due to the CARD Act. And secondly, I'll challenge the reason, because, well, if you put the credit card, if you make it that 30-year-olds can't have credit cards anymore, obviously anyone below the age of 30 isn't going to have as much credit card debt. And that's kind of self-evident. And my opponent they don't give any warrant as to why the increase in credit card. They just say, if you're a college student, you have a credit card, you're gonna have debt. They don't give any warrants. Either it's because college students are dumb, they're irresponsible, or they're ill-informed. And if people are in college, you shouldn't be any of those. And finally, my counterclaim is that one of them is that college students accumulate a large amount of debt regardless of credit cards. And again, Blake Ellis from CNN said that thanks to rising tuition and tough job market, college seniors graduated with an average of $27,000 in student loan debt. And regardless of credit cards or not, you're gonna have a large amount of debt, so it doesn't really matter there. And two other counterclaims would be that if you have credit card earlier, like in your lifetime, I guess you'd be able to build credit easier. So by the time you actually reach the time where you have to buy a house or a car, you have good credit. And finally, that credit card may come in handy if you're in an emergency, especially like in college. You're driving home, you need gas, you don't have any cash on you, you have a credit card, stop at a gas station, use a credit card. If you're, that kind of already proves the point wrong. And I think that, personally, I believe that, if you're in college and you're responsible, knowledgeable about the credit card, there'd be no problem. The problem is that most people just don't know what they're doing.
All right, well, you label the advocate's claim and secondary points pretty clearly, but then you ignore that secondary structure to kind of just keep your arguments in a very generic argument, evidence challenges, reasoning challenges, and counterclaims, which I think is perhaps, going to end up disorganizing your arguments. Although they are grouped together by type of response, they aren't really responding to the particulars that the advocate presented, and so we're going to have to make those applications. I think that you've got a very good piece of information about the Card Act of 2010, and that substantially changes the conditions under which people are going to be able to get credit cards at this age, and that means that the inferences that the advocate's drawing from evidence that comes from prior to 2010 doesn't reflect the current conditions. So I think that that's a very good piece of information, and I think the way you used it is pretty effective. It suggests that we have addressed this issue substantially. I do like the piece of evidence that you have in the middle there that talks about how consumer debt on credit cards really has been reduced by 11% in the last year or two, and I think that seems to show that there's an opposite direction to the argument that the advocate was developing. On the reasoning issues, I didn't think the first couple of arguments that you made here were very clear at all. I think the counterclaim argument that you present is really one of those reasoning issues that has been disguised a little bit. The real source of debt problems for students is not their credit cards, it's their student loans. And I think that you're basically presenting a counter-causality on this point, and that is a reasoning challenge. That's one of the reasons why you don't want to label the kind of argument that you're making. Oh, it's an evidence challenge, it's a reasoning challenge, it's a counterclaim. Just make the claim. Then we're not judging, does it fit in the right category? We're just looking at the claim that you're making, and I think that'll be a little bit clearer. All right, thank you.